Obama has come out in a statement and badmouthed populist movements in the United States and Europe. And that just made me think of Sunday, the German president coming out and saying the elites are not the problem, the populations are the problem. And then that made me think of one of the top people at the Council on Foreign Relations that was established in 1922 at Pratt House, New York, openly by British intelligence to establish an intelligence agency under a National Security Act that would create a silent dictatorship over the United States. That was effected finally in their main mission in 1947 with the National Security Act and the establishment of the Central Intelligence Agency. Merging that with the 1913 Private Federal Reserve, they had a secret shadow government and the control of currency and credit. The British Empire had reconquered the United States. The victory of the 1780s had been reversed. But let's be clear, that's not the British people that are our enemy. It was the British imperial shadow government model of Cecil Rhodes deployed and adopted here. It was more of a merger of the British Empire into the United States, but the same management techniques, and then now a merger with the European system and their oligarchs to establish a eugenics-based world government. And that's why we have, if you're a TV viewer, look at the arrogance of this person's face and just this classic look. So many of these billionaires and elitists are inbred. They are mentally ill. They have a lot of genetic problems. I don't care if they're Jewish in background, German in background, Chinese in background, Japanese in background, Russian in background, Spanish in background. Their eyes normally don't point the same directions. It's just that's seen as a sign of elitism in England. If one eye points another direction. And I'm not being mean to folks that have that genetic disorder from interbreeding. The gypsies have that. The Romanovs have that a lot too. But you're like, I have a lazy eye there. That's seen as a, I mean, if you have a lazy eye, you get in the best, private clubs. If you're wearing a tuxedo and got a lazy eye and like, and you can't even hardly talk. Like, who are you with? What club? And you're like, they'll just, oh, your lordship, good lord, come out immediately. I mean, I'm not kidding, okay? I'm not joking. So, got an extra finger, you're, oh, good lord. So that's what this is all about. In fact, the British royal family, even the BBC's reported, has another strand of DNA, not a double helix, but a triple helix, has a delicious little mutated something. They're not quite sure what it is, but the royalty's sure what it is and keeps that little antenna in the family so we can get those transmissions, they believe. Now, continuing, CFR member calls on elites to rise up against ignorant masses. Wealthy heir to the Bloomingdale's chain sneers as populist voters who cherish values and tradition. And notice his eyes do not point the same direction. He's in the club. The psycho interbred nutcase club. It doesn't mean everybody whose eyes point different directions is like that. Okay, it can be from damage or car wrecks or whatever, but with these guys, it's all the same. I call it the little twinkle of El Diablo. Look at Zuckerberg. Everybody has the little twinkle of El Diablo. Continuing, in a column for Foreign Policy magazine, where they openly announce world government, how they're chemtrailing us and everything, how they run Al-Qaeda, they just write it like we're total idiots and just it doesn't even matter, because criminals always brag. But they tell you it's a greater good, and they're so intellectual, they understand the end justifies the means. In a column for Foreign Policy, I meant to cover this 3 days ago, I'm covering it now because it ties into everything. In a column for Foreign Policy magazine, Council on Foreign Relations member James Traub argues that the elite need to rise up, these are quotes, against the mindlessly angry, ignorant masses in order to prevent globalization from being derailed by the populist revolt that has led to the Brexit and the rise of DJT, or the centipede. That's one of Trump's nicknames that I'm most fond of on the internet. And then we, those that support Trump, are known as baby centipedes. I've coined the term Trumpkins, is what I prefer. My children are Trumpkins. I'm not really a Trumpkin. But continuing, citing, here, let me read in a fake Atlantic elitist accent that was affected by the 20s when British intelligence made it popular in early talkies when those first came out, so that you could really show you were in the in club you had to speak with a slight British accent, but that's what have mutated into a first and Howell a third. Oh, Buffy, lovey. Would you like to buy some mining stock, Gilligan? Perhaps some derivatives? Yeah, let me show you that I can talk like them. Here, let me talk just like he does. Concerned that today's citizen revolt, see, I can talk like them too, in the United States, Britain, and Europe, may upend politics as nothing else has in a lifetime. Traub notes that Britain and the Brexit was a, quote, utter repudiation of bankers and economics. No, of mega 5 banks above the law, tax exempt, that have diplomatic immunity, that openly are funding, taking our guns, taking our property, shutting down local banks. The head of the Texas Banking Association 4 years ago wrote a 19-page giant article that was in the Austin Business Journal. I happened to just see it sitting there, and I was at a restaurant waiting to pick up some food, and just goes, oh my God, did Alex Jones write this? And I found out it was in newspapers all over the state. And he was just saying, it's a global elite taking over. They're shutting down all the local banks. They're shutting down the credit unions. They're shutting down loans. They want to collapse in the economies. They can consolidate it. They're giving themselves the trillions in bailout money and not delivering it actually to the people so that we can loan it out. And then meanwhile, the average idiot thinks the bank down the street that's local or regional is their enemy, when almost all of those are collapsing right now. But I digress. He just goes, they're just against civilization and economics. We're speaking of economics here, something you little people don't know anything about. Well, let me see. 68% of the first 2 years of bailout was in the tens of trillions, not 800 and something billion. And it was given, the vast majority, almost 70%, to foreign banks, and still is secret to this day. And then almost none of it, less than 10%, look it up yourself, has ever actually been put into the economy, into the people. That's how they stop too bad inflation. They go, oh, we're going to have unlimited free money for ourselves, but make sure that we don't spend it anywhere in the retail low-level market. You don't get any of this money. It might inflate things. So yachts and real estate for the super rich inflate, and that's where the inflation is. That's why it's stratospheric. But don't worry, proletariat. We have confined it to luxury penthouses and 300-foot yachts and private floating cities and private airports and pleasure palaces and armored keeps, redoubts, fortresses, castles, or you can simply call them hideouts. Take your vaccines and drink your aspartame. There. Now there's a haze. Just go to sleepy there. Yes, in all our white papers, we say we put fluoride in the water to dumb you down, and we announce that we're in a war with you. But Pepsi for 1 year took aspartame out because of lawsuits and because no one was buying it. But they snuck it back in last week. Don't worry. Drift away. Enjoy the brain tumors and enjoy the baby flavoring. Now, they take baby flavoring and then synthesize it into a synthetic baby flavoring, but they test the baby flavoring with a DNA cue that is fresh baby. So, to be technical, your Pepsi and Pepsi products is baby flavoring, not babies, but tested by babies. But let me continue here. I'll be intellectual today and speak in this vernacular for you. How does that sound? Continuing. Citing the potential for a Trump to split the Republican Party, even if he does lose, and increasing unpopularity of France's socialist government, Traub argues, another billionaire for socialism, that establishment political parties in major Western countries must combine forces to keep out the nationalist. That's a quote. We must combine forces to stop them. We claim we just rule you, and we're tax exempt. And we do all these wonderful things like funding radical Islamicists to come in, and then you don't like us. But look, I'm standing on the street in my photo, smiling arrogantly. And isn't that what it's... And these so-called elitists, they're a bunch of psychopaths and sociopaths, but they're not even that smart. They just have management systems that have been sputtering on for hundreds of years, dumbing everyone down and engaging in all this criminal activity and wrecking countries and wrecking economies so you can perch on top of them because you can't compete with prosperity. And then you misrepresent what we say about you, trash. And guys like this, Rothkopf and others have been like, join us, Alex, you're smart. Come, you'll be very successful with us. And then later they just, you don't want to be with us? Because you go to Harvard and all these places and you work and work and work. And I guess you're from the right family and you work 18 hours a day for years in some law firm. And then finally they invite you to go play golf for them. Kind of like Judge Smales in Caddyshack. He says, how would you like to come by? Huh? And mow my lawn. And then after you've done that for another 10 years or so, maybe you marry one of their, interbred, mentally ill daughters and put up with her crap. And then I guess you go in the steam room with dad and then, service him, with your father-in-law. And seriously, folks, then you go to a little satanic ritual. And then next you're at the mansion, having some pedophile fun and Jerry Sandusky drops by. And then you're in the club and they say, young man, it's time to run you for Congress. That's right. We'll have you in 2 years. I'm just hypothetically talking about the whole genre of these people. Certainly not this guy. He's a wonderful person.